Morning, wherever you are in the world. It's really good to have you with me this morning. I'm going to talk about something which we would not have been doing 3 years ago. We probably wouldn't have been doing it 2 years ago, but we need to do it now. How to lead in the post-pandemic environment. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Graham Moore. And if you don't know me, let me tell you a little bit about who I am, because you've got to know something. Here we go. 25 years of developing others. Probably a little bit longer than that, actually. Over 3,000 training days. That doesn't mean that I attended 3,000 training days. I was conducting over 3,000 training days. I'm a certified master of the Leadership Challenge, which some of you may recognise. It's globally known as one of the most significant leadership development programs. It's been around for over 35 years. And I have delivered programs to help others in over 20 countries on 5 continents. So I want you to think about how you led BC, before COVID. Take your mind back to the dim, dark past of where we regarded things were normal, in person. When we were in the office in those days, we could say, come into my office now. You could organise a meeting at a moment's notice and everybody would hopefully leave what they were doing and come into your office or the meeting room. We had things that we call water cooler conversations. You could pop your head over someone's petition or around the corner and have a conversation with them. You could meet them in the elevator and start a conversation about the things they need to be doing. There was an interaction happening in those days. That was the norm. We knew of no other way until the pandemic arrived. Then, oh my gosh, quarantine, work from home, and all of that provided us with a deal of uncertainty. Quarantine, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Oh my gosh, we learned words that we had never had to use before. We had to self-isolate. We had to keep our distance from others. We had to work from home. And for many people, that was a challenge, working from home. Particularly if you're an introvert, working from home is really good, but if you're an extrovert, it's not so good. So it affects different personalities and different people in different ways. Some people loved it. Some people struggled with it. They need to be working with, interacting with others. And the Zoom interaction wasn't always enough. What? How are we going to survive? How are we going to work effectively in this environment where we were stuck at home? We were doing everything over Zoom. So we've gone through all of that. We've gone through all that uncertainty. We've gone through the confusion. We've gone through, hopefully, a sense of loss which occurred during that time, and the isolation, which in fact helped a lot with some people, which also hindered and impacted negatively on others. Will I still have a job? What's going to happen? Uncertainty was always in the air. So who was affected in this time? No, it wasn't just the people with the black ties. We were all affected. Quite simply, organisations large and small, government, multinationals, NGOs, we were all affected. No argument. Quite simply, everybody was affected by the pandemic. From an organisational perspective, this was undoubtedly a crisis. So what else happened? Well, in the chat box, I want you to write 1 or 2 words to describe other responses to the lockdown. I'm going to give you maybe 30 seconds. Now, I'll just check on what's happening in the chat box. So we're getting a few responses now. Alone. Okay. Hard to communicate. Yes. No support. Oh my gosh. Yes. These are the things that happened. Confusion. Another one. This is what happened during this time. Of course, uncertainty, and there's another one that I've mentioned earlier. It's coming again. Uncertainty. Wanted to leave. Well, you couldn't always leave the lockdown, but that's what we had to deal with. Now, 6 months later. Yeah, 6 months later. Well, we're more than 6 months later now, but Obviously, we need to readjust to in-office meetings. People had become accustomed to wearing their pajamas on Zoom meetings. Well, the lower half of their pajamas anyway. Maybe I was one of those too. I think all of us were able to live a more casual life working from home. And that was a little bit harder to adapt to initially, and then perhaps to go back to the work situation and the physical work environment. So what's the future workforce and workplace going to look like? Well, in terms of the workforce, it's important that organisations identify, attract and engage people with the right skills and experience aligned to mission and purpose. When this was set out in Deloitte, Returning to the Future of Work, about 2 years ago, identify the right people, the skills, the experience, specifically allied or aligned to mission and purpose. The work from that same report by Deloitte was a digital world, machines and humans will be enabled to do what they do best independently. As this automation drives efficiency, humans will focus on innovation, creativity and problem solving. The workforce, the workplace is changing. Here's another one from Deloitte. Blend of the physical and virtual environments. Personalised experiences will empower people to be at their best. Collaboration tools and platforms will support dynamic work locations. What's required will be an agile mindset. An agile mindset will be the norm, and organisations will value adaptability over procedure. There was a time when you must follow the process, must follow the procedures. Now we're looking for people who are adaptable, can easily manage change, cope with change, and in fact, initiate change. But the evidence is in terms of the workplace. And this is from Accenture in their Future of Work globally in 2021. Those who had a hybrid work model during COVID-19 had better mental health and stronger work relationships. That's the hybrid work model. They also experienced less burnout than those who worked entirely on site or entirely remotely. 83% identified the hybrid model as being optimal for the future. Hybrid, that's what people want. So what are the likely issues in the workplace environment post-pandemic? Isolation, yes, that can still apply. Feeling disconnected, yes. Zoom overload, yes. We know that during the pandemic at its peak, people who are working from home absolutely felt isolation. They missed the connection with other people, and people were just going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, and it was Zoom overload. What else? What else are some of the other issues? Think about now, what other issues occurred during that process? So what leadership characteristics did employees regard as the most important during the pandemic? Leadership characteristics. Here we go. Honest, inspiring, competent, and forward-looking. This is from the Leadership Challenge by Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner. During the pandemic, the research that they conducted showed that people wanted their leaders to be honest, inspiring, competent, and forward-looking. And you know what? Those 4 characteristics remain the same for the 35 years that Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner have been researching this. So even in the pandemic, they wanted their leaders to be honest, inspiring, competent, and forward-looking. So what leadership characteristics do staff regard as the most as we move out of the pandemic? Guess what? It's the same. That's what they always want. So you as a leader need to be honest. You need to be inspiring, you need to be competent, you need to be looking to the future and guiding your people to the future, a positive future, exciting them about where we're going and the journey that we're on. So what do you suggest? 2 words in the chat box, please, and I'll take some comments as we're looking at them. What do you suggest? Oh, build relationships. Yes. What else? Greater communication. Yeah, oh my gosh. Yes. Interaction. Thank you. Very good. What else? two-way communication. Yeah. Listen. There's another one. Of course, we've got to listen. So this is, I'm not going to go through all of these, but they're just some examples of what people are saying now. So keep them coming in, please. What does effective leadership look like post-pandemic? Well, relational leadership is critical. Relationships are so important. We say that relationships are one of the fundamentals of leadership in the Leadership Challenge. Build relationships. Leaders who are most effective have great relationships with the people they are leading. Develop and maintain relationships with everyone. There are three important leadership strategies in this process. So what are they? Well, we say that the first one in this current time of post-pandemic, sense making. That is having people make sense of what is happening. Develop a sense and an assurance that they understand what's going on. So the first of these is what is important now at this time? What is happening now? The third of these to help people ground themselves in the reality of what's going on and making sense of everything is, how does that affect you? What's important, what's happening now, and how does that affect you? The second one is grounding presence, a grounding presence. You know what I mean by that? This is feeling assured by being grounded with the presence that the leader is showing. This is about you being the best leader you can be so that people are reassured that you are there, you are leading them, you are supporting them. This gives them a confidence in knowing where they are going because they know that you're there to support them. The second of these is be present regularly. Yeah, well, I was in a meeting with them 2 weeks ago. Not good enough. Regularly be present. And the third one is this. More and more now, you as a leader need to be a counsellor. Yep, supporting people to move forward. Here's the three areas that are important. Encourage people to talk and you listen. Important. You listen. The second one is empathise. Empathy is one of the greatest communication tools, emotional tools that we have available to us. I understand how you feel. This is really difficult for you and all of us. Let's work through this together. Empathise. And the third one, encourage and support their solutions. Get them to come up with solutions to the processes. Get them to identify solutions for the issues that they might be facing and support those. Support their solutions when they come up with them. Leadership is personal. Do the people you lead know who you are, what you care about, and why they ought to be following you? This is from Ron Sugar, who is the Chairman Emeritus of the Northrop Grumman Corporation. Leadership is personal, absolutely. They want to know you, and you should know them. A good leader takes the time to know his or her team on a personal level, but a great leader goes one step further and learns about each person's values, how they build trust, and what is core to their motivation and drive. You know, we don't understand people's values. We can't share what our values are effectively. Those values, when they are aligned to the organisation's values, deliver great results. But it's understanding what their personal values are that's very important. It's an easy discussion to have with people, and you share what your values are and what those values mean to you. Understanding how people build trust. Trust trumps everything. People want to trust their leader at all times. They want to have that assurance that the leader is there with them, honest, trustworthy, has integrity at all times. And then they want to know what is core to their motivation and drive. Now, I have a question that I ask in workshops. What is it that brings you to work every day, the work that you do? What is it that you get out of that? Why do you come? And what I'm doing is to try to find out what their internal drivers are. And they all give me a response to that. I know what I need to use if I'm their manager to get the best out of them. because I know what their internal drivers or motivation is. As I've said for a long time, you cannot motivate a team. You motivate individuals in the team dependent on what their motivational drivers are. And how do you find out that? You ask the right questions. It's quite simple. Trust. We keep coming back to trust. Make trust a core value. People repeatedly say that they want to trust their leader. They want to trust the people that they're working with. And this one, about values. Articulate and live your values. Values are so important. I say that a leader's values are the value of that leader. We in the Leadership Challenge call this model the way. If you say you have certain values, that's it. You live those values. If you don't live those values, you lose trust. If you don't do what you say you will do, you lose trust. Live your values. If you say you're a team player, make sure you're a team player. If you say support is one of your key values, you've got to support people. If you say family is one of your key values, you've got to demonstrate those family values to the people that you are leading. If you say loyalty is a key value, you've got to be loyal. So understand, articulate, talk about, and then live your values. So have a discussion around values. As I say, ask, have your values changed as a result of the pandemic? And they may have. Some values may have become more important because of what was happening during the pandemic. So what are some of the values which we may have now that have become more important than before? Doesn't mean we didn't have them before, but it means that we, because of the circumstances, regarded certain values with higher importance. So here are some of them that may have come up: caring, integrity, teamwork, health, empathy, equality. We had to care about people in that time. We had to understand people working from home and the isolation that that presented. Same sort of thing now. We must always maintain integrity. Teamwork became important more so because we were isolated. We had to find ways of making the team work better when we weren't all in the same working environment physically. Obviously, health was more important. Empathy is critical, and particularly during the time when people are in isolation or working from home. And equality is another value that may have surfaced, may become more important for some people during that time. Trust. Friendship became more important because we only had certain windows to communicate with people when we were having our Zoom calls, rather than perhaps having the water cooler conversation. We all had an issue that was common to everybody, and that then helped build friendships because we had that common issue to share with others to get a good result. Patience, another value that may have improved for some people. Recognition, because people are working from home, where they're in isolation, the need for recognition for what people did increased. We know that people need, want, crave for, in some cases, work more effectively when they have recognition. And in the time when people are working from home, when they are in isolation, recognition becomes important, more so. Creativity is also another value that may become important because we're looking at new, different ways, creative ways of working and achieving results. Caring. Yeah, well, I started with caring and there it is again, because caring was so important, still is. Those people who lead primarily from value-based motivations outperform those who lead with additional instrumental outcomes and rewards. Your values are so important. How easy is it to live your values all the time? Yep, do it. So here are some questions for you to ask. And this is about you asking your team, the individuals in your team. You can ask them as a group or you can ask them individually. How does what I do impact on your performance? Now, many leaders find that question a little bit challenging. How does what I do impact on your performance? Managers would find it extremely difficult to ask because they're coming from a space of wanting to focus on results. And they're not so concerned, usually, about the people side of things, about people's emotions, about leading. Leaders should ask this question because they want to improve what they're doing. And they may not always know what is important for some people when that leader does or doesn't do certain things. So how does what I do impact on your performance? Oh, well, in the meeting the other day, I was trying to make a point and I think you interrupted me a little bit. I was a bit put off. Really? I'm sorry. Oh, wow, I'll be aware of that. Obviously, that's a simple example. In many cases, you will get a simple example, but ask the question. Allow the people you're leading to be able to give you feedback, honestly, so that you can become a better leader, which then leads to the second question. What can I do to help you perform at your best? I've got to say this. I think a lot of people, most people, want to perform at their best. And what you're doing here, post-pandemic, during the pandemic, before the pandemic, is to say, what can I do to help you perform at your best? And listen to what they have to say. What did you learn? This is for you to ask you. What did you learn about your work style during the pandemic? Were you more open to suggestions? Were you inclined to listen more? How was your patience? Did you have good patience in leading people during that start time? Did you accommodate the fact that you couldn't go and talk to people in the elevator or by the water cooler? That you had to focus on your work for certain periods of time before the next Zoom meeting? Was that effective? Was it productive? What did you learn about your work style during the pandemic? And what can we change that we haven't changed already to improve the way we work? Now, when you've asked yourself these questions, then ask those you are leading, then ask the team individually or in a team meeting. What did you learn about your work style during the pandemic? And what can we change? What can I change? What can you change that we haven't already done to improve the way we work? Make sure there is a clearly defined vision, which they, your team, know that they have a stake in, that the vision includes them. Where are we going? Talk regularly about the vision. There was so much confusion during the pandemic, as we all know. People want to be led out of this. Remember those 4 characteristics that I said that they want their leader to be inspiring? They want their leader to be forward-looking. That is about the vision, where we are going. Talk to them about that positively. Make sure the vision is clearly defined. These geese know where they're going. They know where they're going, and so they're happy to go. I want your people to be clear on the vision that you have, and so that they want to commit to it and they want to give their very best along the way. Accept and encourage change. What's next? What's happening? What's new? How can we do it better? You know, I really think that third one that I've got there is one of the most important statements or questions that a leader can ask in terms of the procedures and processes and things that we've done. How can we do it better? There is no implied criticism of what people have done when you ask that question. Not at all. It's always looking, regardless of the fantastic result we've got, how can we do it better? You know, with some of the most expensive and beautiful products that we can purchase these days, the manufacturers of those amazing products, which you might look at and think, this is fantastic. The manufacturers are always wanting to say, how can we do it better? How can we revolutionize this? Not just do it better, but revolutionize. Revolution, change, innovation is what we thrive on and what we need, particularly now. Make challenge, innovation, and improvement fundamental behaviours. Make that culturally strong, that we are going to challenge what we're doing. We're going to look for better ways. We're going to innovate. We're going to be constantly looking to improve. And those 3 words, challenge, innovation, and improvement, apply to every person in the team. Yes, and outside the team. It should be everybody in the organisation who has those three behaviours as a part of what they are thinking and talking about. So what we want to do is to grow others, take them to the next level and then the next. That's what leaders do, help them grow during the pandemic and post-pandemic. This is important. So of the 5 practices of exemplary leadership, which is from the Leadership Challenge, there is one which is more important now. The 5 practices. Well, you may not know them, but let me tell you what one of them is, which is the most important. And it's this. Exemplary leaders give encouragement. The 5th practice of the challenge, the Leadership Challenge, is encourage the heart. I've got this quote down the bottom here, which it offends me every time I see it. Probably why it's there. Quite some years ago when I was doing a program for an organisation that some of you may remember, but it no longer exists, Anderson Consulting. He said, you don't need to encourage people. They know when they've done a good job. No, that's not right. They may know when they've done a good job, but you still need to encourage them. Please encourage people and you'll get greater results. 98% of people consistently in the research that we do say they perform at their best when they're given positive encouragement. 98%. Why wouldn't you do it? I say that every time I give this quote. Why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you encourage people if it's going to have them perform at their best? So what about you? Write in the chat box how you like to be encouraged. Some might say a pat on the back. Yeah. An email. Yes, from the boss, from the managing director. What else? Recognition in front of the team. Yes. What else? Day off. Well, okay, maybe that can be arranged. There are a range of ways that people can be recognised. Handwritten note, absolutely. A handwritten note goes such a long way. People remember a handwritten note from you well after you've gone. And I talk about that specifically in the workshops that I do. It's the one that was shown to me that I wrote 30 years before. This is powerful. So recognise and encourage. Just say thank you more often. Email, of course, thank you. Not just thank you, but a little bit more than that. Personally encourage people. Celebration with the team. Coach them on a regular basis. That's another way of recognising what they have done. There's a key to all of these and key to this encouragement. It must be genuine and meaningful. Don't just say, oh, I love what you're doing. It's got to be meaningful and genuine and personally recognise the individual. Leadership in the post-pandemic environment isn't new. No, it's not. We're just using some of the aspects that we've used before and being aware of them now and refining them and focusing a little bit more on some more than others than we did in the past. There's just a different focus. So why is leading in the post-pandemic environment important? Well, guess what? We need to do this now. We are there. We are in the post-pandemic environment. Sure, there might still be COVID issues around that we've got to be careful about, but it's important that we understand how to lead more effectively because of the situation and circumstances that we have been through and which some people are still going through. And we're going to then get great results. I have a 2-day workshop. I certainly do for organisations who want to focus on this more specifically for their organisation and their needs. 2-day workshop, leading in the post-pandemic environment. I want to help you get great results with the teams that you're leading. And this is one workshop that I have, which I know will help you do that. It's in-house. Yep, we can do it with your team. We can do it virtually or as things improve. And we are now doing in-person workshops. We can do it in person. So how do you find out more about these? There's my email address, graham@moresuccessme.com. And of course, I have a website, moresuccessme.com, where you'll find out even more about the programs that I do. It's been a pleasure being with you today. And I trust that you're going to take away some things from this. If anybody wants to stick around and ask me some questions, I will take those questions with you now, but I know that some people need to move on. For those that do, thank you so much for being with us. It has been, as always, my pleasure to be with you today.